Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to cut through all the noise around one of tech's biggest buzzwords, the metaverse. Let's just forget the confusing headlines and all the financial speculation for a minute. We're going to get into what it actually is, how it's already creating some really profound human connections, and what its future could really hold for all of us. To really get to the heart of this, let's just start with a simple question. What if physical distance just wasn't a barrier anymore to sharing an experience with someone you care about? That right there, that's the fundamental promise driving the whole idea of the metaverse, creating a true sense of shared presence no matter where you are in the world. So at its core, this is what we're talking about. It's not just a website you look at or an app you use. It's a shared, persistent digital space that you can actually exist in through a virtual version of yourself, your avatar. You can kind of think of it as the next evolution of the internet, moving from 2D pages to 3D places. But to really understand where the metaverse is today, we have to look back at the massive hype cycle it just went through. I mean, for a while there, it was an absolute whirlwind of speculation, investment, and nonstop media attention. Public interest, if you just measure it by Google searches, went completely vertical. It just exploded, fueled by these huge corporate investments and really bold predictions. But that peak was pretty short-lived. Almost as quickly as all that excitement rose, it just seemed to fade away. But here's the thing. While all that financial hype was cooling down, something else was happening, something way more meaningful. Beyond the headlines, this technology was quietly creating these really profound moments of human connection, like the one captured in this powerful story from a user. So let's see how this actually works in practice. Because beyond all the speculation, the metaverse is already being used to create these powerful, real-world connections that honestly would be impossible otherwise. So, take this application, Alcove, for example. Its entire mission is to fight social isolation by creating shared virtual spaces. And this isn't about some complicated futuristic game. It's about connecting people, especially those who might be the most vulnerable to feeling lonely. Okay, so let's dive into this. In a place like Alcove, you and a family member, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, can suddenly explore the Great Barrier Reef or take a road trip, or you could just sit in a virtual living room surrounded by your own family photos. It's all about creating these simple, shared experiences that just make physical distance melt away. And what's really interesting is how this same immersive tech is changing the way we remember our loved ones and how we preserve our own stories for the next generations. There's this concept called living memorials. Just imagine walking through a virtual gallery of a loved one's life, seeing their photos on the walls, and hearing their stories almost as if they were right there next to you. It's a really powerful, modern take on something like a traditional photo album. So what is the core technology that's making all of these immersive, shared experiences possible? Let's just break down the basics of how it all works. So there are two main gateways into the metaverse: virtual reality and augmented reality. VR, which usually needs a headset, puts you completely inside a digital world. AR, on the other hand, which you can often use with just your phone, brings digital objects into your physical world. This diagram is a great way to see that the metaverse isn't just one single thing. It's actually a pretty complex ecosystem with a bunch of different layers. Right at the center is you, the user, doing things like gaming or learning, and that whole experience is supported by software, by hardware like VR headsets, and by the basic infrastructure, things like 5G and processors that makes it all run smoothly. And all this brings us to the big question on everyone's mind, especially after that whole hype cycle we just talked about. Is the metaverse actually going to become a part of our everyday lives? Public skepticism is pretty high. User numbers for some of the biggest platforms are still relatively small. But what's really fascinating is that even among the experts, the very people building this technology, there is no consensus. They are almost perfectly split on its future. A survey from the Pew Research Center actually found that just over half of these experts believe that, by 2040, the metaverse will be a fundamental, fully immersive part of daily life for at least 500 million people around the world. But then, the other 46%, that's nearly half, remember, they remain unconvinced. They think that for a whole bunch of reasons, it just won't hit that kind of widespread mainstream adoption in that same timeframe. But even with that deep divide among the experts, some predictions are still incredibly bold. The research firm Gartner, for instance, predicts that in just a couple of years, a quarter of us will be spending at least an hour a day in the metaverse for pretty much everything, from work and shopping to just hanging out. So where does that leave us? Well, we've definitely moved beyond just theory. The technology is here, and as we've seen, it's already creating real human value. But whether it becomes the next internet, a seamless part of all our lives, or if it stays a more niche virtual world, that's a story that's still being written. The only thing we know for sure is that the line between our digital and our physical lives is only going to keep getting blurrier.